Alright, Onslaught is just making so many waves already, and he is barely 1 month old in the contest. So, why is Onslaught just so impactful already? Why is he regarded as like a new top 5 mutant at minimum? With honestly some arguments for top 1, which is insane, right? So why is he this good? Well, I'm gonna try to keep it simple because I want to do a whole trial for Onslaught because I think he definitely needs one with how much hype he has right now. So let's just try to keep it simple here. Why is Onslaught just so beloved right now? Why is everyone just obsessed with this character? Well, I think it's because he is kind of marking the start of a new era in the mutant class. And what do I mean by that? Well, Onslaught has mechanics that are unique to just him. For example, Daunted. Onslaught is the first ever champion to have Daunted in the game. And what this does is, it is essentially like prowess, but it's a debuff instead of like an actual prowess buff or passive. And that's important because most tech champions are known to counter prowess. For example, Nimrod, the biggest one. So you can't just counter Daunted like you do with prowess, right? So Nimrod isn't that good for Onslaught. And additionally, Onslaught is shock immune, which is massive because, Nimrod needs to shock the opponent. And Nimrod has just been dominating the mutant class for over 2 years now. And it's finally time for him to just stop because Onslaught just counters everything about Nimrod, right? So that's why I feel like Onslaught already has such a massive impact on this game because he just is so unique, right? Of course, every champion of 2023 was very, very unique, but I think Onslaught is the most unique because what he's doing right now is just something that was desperately needed. So he is already making waves in the mutant class because before Onslaught, the mutant class was just so dry. It needed so much help, and Danny Moonstar, while she's fun, just didn't have that impact at all. She just was another prowess character, and while she does have some cool things like the marked passive and the Nero shocks, she was doing some pretty cool things, right? But her impact just wasn't really all that. But with Onslaught here, it's just a whole different story. And another thing with Onslaught is that he is an icon, right? He is so popular in the Marvel comics. He is one of the most menacing villains ever. So when a champion is this important, you just can't mess them up, right? Because when that happens, it's just the worst feeling ever. And I know there's already a lot of Marvel characters that were done so dirty in this game, the best example being Sentry, but Onslaught, they just did so much justice, and I'm really happy for the people that have been wanting this character for a long time because he is just such a powerhouse in this game. But with that being said, let's just go over the gameplay and let's talk about his abilities now for a second. So in this fight, it is pretty obvious what he's gonna do here, right? He's just gonna counter Kingpin, especially the Purify, because whenever the opponent purifies one of Onslaught's debuffs, including the parry stun, it gets turned into a passive, which is really good. And it's not just against skilled characters, it is against any class. And that's important because some champions have that as well, but with only skilled champions. And I guess that shows just how powerful Onslaught is, because this man doesn't care about just the skill class. He just wants to run the whole contest, which honestly he might just do because he is such a good character. And his utility is just amazing, right? But his damage output is also a pretty strong selling point for him. This is a rank 4 Onslaught, and he just does so well in all these matchups. Even this matchup, which is pretty unideal because whenever you knock them down with a heavy attack, they get this timer. And when the timer expires, you take pretty much all your health. It's not all of it, it's half of it, but it's still a ton of health, right? But if you play around it well, then Onslaught can still do this fight. And it just goes to show how he can just adapt pretty well to any scenario, and that's why I feel like he will be good for a lot of different areas in the game. So far, he's been good for Alliance War, Battlegrounds, Necropolis, which is honestly one of his best things because his fight time in Necropolis is just so crazy. Like, he's done 4-minute fights there sometimes, which is insane for over 8 million health. But yeah, I'm praising this guy a ton, obviously, but I think he just deserves it. I know I praise champions a ton and like really often, and sometimes like when they don't really deserve it, but I think everyone can just tell that this champion is kind of broken. Like the damage output, the utility, and the craziest part is that he is a defender. Like he was, I think, meant to be a defender. If not that, then like a dual threat, which he is doing, you know, his job perfectly if so. But his defensive capabilities, they're really good so far. Like with the Crush 2.0 node, just making him even more difficult and like his already very annoying mechanics, he's gonna be a powerhouse in both attack and defense for a while, I feel like. And that's good because I want him to be like relevant for as long as possible because it is Onslaught, right? Take Apocalypse for example. Apocalypse, he's been like one of the top mutants for like 3 or 4 years now, which is insane because he's Apocalypse, and I feel like Onslaught is just as powerful as him when it comes to like powers in the comics, I assume anyway. But yeah, here we have this Red Hulk, same node as the last fight, and he just takes it very well, of course. You have to play around it, like especially that down and out node, but once you do, it is just a really fun time. So here I dropped the SP1, and the Daunted just puts in its work for sure because look at that degen damage, man. It is just so much, and this fight is now over. So that was pretty sweet. That was a good fight time as well. Now we have this Gauntlet Dr. Doom, and this is not ideal for Onslaught in the slightest because Dr. Doom, he has a ton of block penetration, he has crit res, and Onslaught really wants to crit as well because it gives him more Neuroshocks. It's not like necessary, but it does help the ramp a ton. So yeah, this fight is just not ideal for him, right? But he still gets it done really well. So here I dropped the SP1, we get the Neuroshocks up, we have 10 of them now, or like 9, close enough. And yeah, the build up for the Neuroshocks in this fight, it's pretty slow because you can't get all the ones you want to get. But check this out, the heavy attack range is just so crazy, and that's another thing with like Onslaught that is just so good because sometimes heavy attack range can just mess up a champion completely. OG Storm, for example, amazing champion. What's your biggest drawback? The heavy attack range. Of course, she's still like really powerful, but if she had proper heavy attack range, she would be an insane champion. And of course, she still is pretty dang insane, but it'd be a level that we couldn't even imagine if her heavy attack was like actually good. So yeah, heavy attack range is pretty important and he just has it covered. But this fight's going pretty well so far. We have the 20 degens built up, so now that they're built up, we can just drop the SP1 because the max stack for the degens is 20. So once you have done the first SP2, it's just not worth it because the SP1 is much longer, and that means that the Daunted is in effect for a longer time as well. So yeah, that's why the SP1 afterwards is just the way to go for sure. And this matchup is now essentially over. I did mess up there a little bit, but it's fine. Here he drops a heavy attack, so I drop mine. Drop the SP1, some nice damage there for sure with the degens, and yeah, that is just a thing of beauty, really. And that was Gauntlet Dr. Doom in about a minute and 57 seconds for a champion that is rank 4 only. That is pretty dang good. But now we have what I think is the most impressive fight here. We have this Crossbones. Now, this Crossbones in Eternity of Pain is one of the hardest bosses in my opinion because the block damage is super annoying, The AI is just terrible as well. The Bane damage is so frustrating. Like, everything about this boss is just really, really painful, right? But Onslaught just counters him so well because, first of all, he is immune to bleed. Well, like, he takes less damage from it, so it's free healing essentially. That's also the case with Shock and Incinerate for him. So yeah, triple immune, which is pretty good. Additionally, he can just, you know, do pretty well for the most part. Like, there really isn't too much to worry about besides the really annoying bleed, and Crossbones is Purify, but he counters Purify, so that is dealt with pretty well also. Here I drop the heavy attack, and now it's time for the SP2 in a bit. And yeah, it does some pretty nice damage as expected. And now that we've dropped the SP2, it is just time for the SP1 spam. So we're in a pretty good spot now. The block damage still does hurt for sure, but the regen from the bleeds is helping us a ton as well. So here drops the SP1, I drop the heavy attack into my own SP1, and yeah, it's just such a beautiful animation as well. And the damage output from it is really great too. Now the Neuroshocks, they actually don't have a stack limit, or I think it's like 100 or something, so it's really high up there pretty much. So that's why the SP1 is really worth it after the first SP2, because yeah, those Neuroshocks, they definitely add up. So here I drop it again, and yeah, the damage output from the shocks and the degen is just way too much for Crossbones, and yeah, that just does it right there. That was also under 2 minutes as well, which is really, really good for a rank 4 champion. But now we have the final fight here, and this one is Labyrinth Red Hulk, because I want to see how much damage output we do by the time like his health is almost down all the way, because at that point, we're going to have so many Neuroshocks stacked up, and the degens as well. It should be a very, very nice time. But as you saw throughout the video, he just works everywhere. His damage output, while it does just get crazy whenever he is fully ramped up, even in like those short bursty fights, that one SP2 just does so much damage output. But now that we're in the final fight, I'm just going to say it now because I've been holding it in this whole entire time. This guy is just so adorable. Like, honestly, the second most adorable character besides, I don't know, Giganto Jr. Because he is like a jumbo marshmallow. Literally. It is crazy how, like, non-menacing he looks despite being one of the most evil villains in Marvel history. So, yeah, I just don't know how they did it. Like, I don't know how they still made an extra large character so adorable despite them being, like, so menacing. So yeah, I just had to say that. You know me, I love my extra large characters. It is concerning maybe, but it's also just for fun. So yeah, that's why I love Onslaught so much as well. My extra large characters, they're just my favorites, of course. I love them so much. And yeah, he is just another really good addition to the extra large squad. So this is just honestly paradise for me, man. I have so many extra large characters now that are just so good. Mole Man is crazy strong. Onslaught might be the best mutant champion in the game, and just so many others. So yeah, this is just like perfect essentially. But here I can just drop the SP1 again. We're at like so many Neuroshocks now. We have, what is that, 36 at this point? It is wild how much they stack up. But yeah, we're not even done yet. We're only halfway through, but it's going to go by a lot faster now that we have like 40 stacked up. Here I drop it again. We get some more stacked up. We're at like almost 50 now. And it is just some amazing damage output at this point. Keep in mind, this is a rank 4 Onslaught. And this is no recall masteries, not even glass cannon. This is just him by himself pretty much. Here I drop it again. And yeah, once you have like the rotation going, you just spam those SP1s and do some crazy damage output. It is so fun. And of course, he is a jumbo marshmallow, so the whole time it is just really, really enjoyable. But here I drop it again. We get some nice damage there. He's almost down. He's at like, what, 6%? And the fight is now over after this final SP1. What a way to end it. And that was a pretty good time as well. For like no synergies or anything at all, 248 is honestly fantastic for 1.5 million health. But yeah, Onslaught is just fantastic, man. So much damage output, so much utility, just something new for the mutant class, which is really, really needed. So yeah, this guy honestly might just be perfect, I feel like. But let me know your thoughts on Onslaught, and yeah, that's about it for me.